I'm here in the polytunnel on this wet, rainy day to give you a look at how things are going since I put the green, the green netting on the outside of the polytunnel. Now my original intention was to push up the plastic on both sides, so I would have a big strip of plastic here along the middle, just sitting for the summer. But I haven't done that. I have been monitoring since I last left you at the end of this job, and I've decided that actually I'm quite happy with it sitting the way it is for now. Having opened up this side and exposed a complete set of hoops at the top end, that height is enough to let the hot air escape. This was my big problem in the past. I have found that because I was plastic to waist height, then I had netting for ventilation. Even when I opened up both doors at each end to allow airflow, I still had this big pocket of hot air, a higher level of the tunnel, that was keeping everything stiflingly hot in here. Now the plants love it, but they're managing absolutely fine without that stupid high temperatures. They've got a lot of wind protection because it is all netted and plastic. How can I describe? Yes, I've still got plastic from waist height to the ground, so that gives a lot of low-level wind protection, and it is completely covered in netting, so that breaks any howling gales blowing through. What I did find, and why I have partly left it as it is when we get a hefty wind blowing, my plastic is still moving slightly because I am not attached to the framework at all at the far end. I'm looped over it, but nothing is actually pinned securely in place. I'm just going to turn you around a moment. Oh, try not to go too fast. It's not nice for watching. So behind me is what I call the bottom of the polytunnel, and the original plastic is still attached into this centre rail that's about waist height. It's sagged and slightly loose and floppy because up and over is no longer tight or tensioned, but it does at least give some bit of plastic that is fixed into the framework. Oh, there you go, you can see at this corner as I released it at the side, and I've pushed it all up, getting higher and higher as we go, so that I'm exposed where I really wanted it, over this swimming pool pond. I'm going to turn us back to see the other side of the tunnel. So this is the very wet side where the rain can get in. It's pretty wet everywhere, which is great because there were odd bits of hole in the original plastic. Now hopefully you've not got too dizzy with all that. So here on the other side of this bottom door, I'm still secured. The original plastic is still fixed into the bottom rail, to the centre rail. It's not connected here, but as you see, it's all loose and baggy and sagging on this side, and it continues to sag more severely as we work our way up the tunnel. Here's one of the original splits. Where have I gone? There. Here's an original split in the plastic. Part of the reason I chose to do this job now when I have. And there's another one drastic up there somewhere. So now it is actually raining. Let's go and have a look in the pond and see if it's really doing what I wanted it to do and give me extra rainwater into the pond, as well as watering the garden beds. The rain is picking up, and as you can see here on what I call the dry side of the tunnel, because it does still have the plastic covering on, there's quite a few drips in the plastic, just from the fact it's 13 years old now. I don't know if the holes are created from age or some bird trying to land on it with its sharp spiky claws or what, but we do have a few drippy spots, and as you can see from the path, which is very dark black compared to, I don't know if we can get a dry patch, there's a little bit of a dry patch next to my chair here. So we are getting water dripping over here, and because all of this walking path area is getting wet, this will all slowly soak in to the soil that will allow the roots to get in under it and suck it up. So higher up the polytunnel, you can see the beds behind me are nice and wet and damp. There's not a lot growing in them at the moment. I have scattered out some seeds for lettuce and beetroot. Whoa! We missed that. I wonder if we get it next time. What have we got? We're at the high end over the pond. I'm not sure how well the camera picks it up, but behind me, about here, there's a constant stream of running water that's pouring off the remaining plastic over this roof. And there will be lots of water gently dripping through the green netting into the water. So I've got 2 runs of water. There should be another one flowing off here somewhere. I can't see it. Much more of a drippity drip there. Now it may not seem much, but after a few hours of rain, surprising how much that does fill up this pond. Since I put the netting on and pushed the plastic out the way, I have gained about 4 or 5 inches of water. Considering we are in the middle of summer, it's pretty good going, though it has been a pretty wet summer. So we can see here in the pond this constant drip of rainwater, and I'm getting dripped on. I'm putting the hood up, there we go. Hopefully up here closer to the pond you can see this lovely run of constant drippy splashy water. All this lovely rain, well not all of it, but lots of this lovely rain running into the pond. And I use this pond water to water the rest of the polytunnel. It's also a bit drippy here above my head, which is why I have my hood up. Now we're wonderfully forecast a couple days of rain, so hopefully that should mean a few more inches of water filling up this pond. Got myself in a slightly drier spot now for a second. Inside the polytunnel, things are doing okay this year. It's not wonderful. We had a really bad start here in the UK. The weather was cold and wet and miserable much later into the spring than normal. And with the sheer volume of rain we've had and the mild winter ahead of it, the slugs and snails are rampant. There are so many UK gardeners struggling with all their young seedlings being totally decimated by slugs and snails, and I have been no different. For all my attempts with Strulch and slug pellets, when it's constantly raining, slug pellets don't really work. They just get too wet and soggy and washed away. So with a really harsh, difficult early spring, everything that is growing seems way behind its normal stage of the season. Inside the polytunnel, here in late July, things are starting to feel a little bit better. My sweet corn is doing really well, which has been a success for this year. But as to melons and cucumbers and squashes, and everything was just so late starting, I'm not sure I'll get any harvest of anything, and if I do, I'll be quite thrilled. The tomatoes had a really late hard start as well. They are just now starting to produce tiny green fruits. So I am hopeful we will get some sort of tomato harvest. because I've still got all of August, and because I'm in the south of the UK it stays warmer later, so hopefully I could run into September with reasonable tomato crop. As for the outside garden, I've given up. I didn't put a lot of effort into the beginning of it this year because the weather conditions were not great for planting anything, and then the season got so late there really seemed no point. So I've just mulched all the beds and left it. I'm keeping it tidy and weeded and mulched, but I haven't been planting. There are some potatoes outside, and I did plant 4 squash plants, 2 of which are surviving, but they're tiny. And I put in some very late sunflowers that have made it to about a foot tall at the moment. Perhaps we'll get a sunflower in the end of September, but if we don't, we don't. I'm amazed they've not been eaten by the slugs yet. Having said that, they did demolish about half the young seedlings that came up. So it was just because I planted such a large quantity of seeds that anything managed to survive. What is doing really well in here this year are the blackberries. So in here I have a thornless blackberry. Now I'm growing thornless blackberries outside, and this one sneaked in here a couple of years ago, and because it is a thornless variety I allowed it to stay. So I think this is probably its 3rd year in the polytunnel, and it's created these beautiful big arches of trailing branches that are packed with delicious blackberries. I have had several harvests off them and I'm about to pick some more. Oh, so many delicious blackberries. Yum. Did I come out with the intention of harvesting blackberries? No, left all my punnets in the house, but I'm definitely not going back in without them. These are going to be delicious. Well, not going to be, they already are delicious. Here, trailing all over the floor, is a physalis plant. Now it's got no support network around it to hold it up, so it is just crawling everywhere and it's taking over the path. So I'm going to have to cut its growing tips off. It's a very late fruiting plant, so I'm not expecting to get any edible fruits off it until November, which is really nice. Late October, early November, I'm harvesting fruit from the garden. But this year it's taking up too much space and getting in the way. So I'm going to lose a few fruits by having to cut its growing tips off. Turning us around not too fast, I hope. Turn me round. What can we see behind me? Sweet corn. This was the first lot of sweet corn I put in, and we've had its polleny tassels have done its thing. I've been in here shaking them about because we don't get enough wind to guarantee pollination, but I think we've done all right. I've got several ears of corn developing quite nicely. I did take a look at one the other day. It's still very white inside, but it's looking good. I don't know what else there is to report in here. Oh, I did plant some kale very late, and that's taking off really well. Normally it wouldn't like the heat in here. It gets too hot for it in midsummer, but because I have all the plastic lifted up and the netting on this year, it's slightly cooler and it's doing great. And here the beans are also doing quite well. I'm mainly growing beans this year to expand the volume of seeds that I've got without spending money on buying lots of extra seeds. So I've got a few different variety of beans in, and they seem to be doing quite well. We've got quite a few pods coming along, so that will be good. What have we got down here? Oh, there, curly beans. Oh, there we go. That pod's rotten, we'll take that off. Yeah. But I don't know how much. Oh yes, there we go. Lots of beans. So I'm pleased with that. These have actually settled in and taking off quite well. Peas, well, pathetic. I planted a load of small pea plants in here, and within the first week half of them had been destroyed. There was some little mouse running around in here eating them all. So I brought the cats in. There is no mouse anymore. Even so, I would say I've really only got one strong healthy plant. There are a couple of other pea plants surviving, but they're really pathetic and small and weak. Whether they will recover and give a nice strong spurt of growth later in the season, I don't know, but there's not a lot of season left, I don't feel. Is that ready? Well, it's not quite full. It's looking big and fat, but when you squeeze the pod, I can feel a bit of give. That one might make it. We'll give that one a go. It's a funny shape. Oh, 3 big peas. Well, it's something at least. Delicious. They taste as good as ever. A shame there's only a few of them. The tomatoes have finally started looking very hopeful. Got quite a few flowers coming. So the things I have in the polytunnel are actually starting to do quite nicely now. It's just that there aren't a lot of things in here. Oh, I did have a cucumber somewhere. Where's that? I noticed today it's just starting to take off. But as I said, we're getting into late July. It's at least a month behind where I'd like it to be. Up a wind, blowing water onto the floor. So there we go, my one surviving cucumber plant. And one cucumber plant is all you really need. I'm sure I planted 2 or 3 though. So hopefully, might get a cucumber or 2. There's a lot of little weeds underneath it, I see. They need dealing with. Almost missed it. Just before we go, I have this beautiful agapanthus flowering here in the polytunnel. Now it's in a pot and standing in a watering tray. And right now it's looking its best, full of beautiful blooms. Now I have several agapanthus plants outdoors, also growing really well. Unfortunately, some passing deer decided to eat off all the flower buds. So no flowers on any of them this year. Oh well, fingers crossed there's always next year. So on this wonderful, wet, drippy day, I'm going to leave it there and get myself back in the house and dry off a bit. I'm not too wet actually. My waterproofs are pretty good. As ever, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, click that like button and let me know. Click subscribe and YouTube will make sure you see my next video.